Hello, hi. What am I doing? Spelunky daily challenge video. That's it. Let's quickly now before it's too late. Quickly looking at today's daily challenge thing. I don't think anyone's done it today. They haven't. It's the 2nd of January. Happy New Year. Did anyone do it previously? 31st. Some people did, and I didn't. In fact, lots of people have been playing when I haven't, because they know that if they play with me I'll come top and they'll feel terrible. Well, without further ado, let's do it's just hard, you know. It's hard, it gets tiring. I mean, I've done 26, 27 of these now. In the series of things that really influenced me, I now want to talk about rock music, which is I don't know, this might be like the most subjective of all the things that I'll be doing a video on. But we're talking about stuff that is very influential to me and that is in some way, you know, really significant, really important. And I'm hoping that if I last longer than I did in the American video, which I totally screwed up. I mean, there's so many, oh dear, so many complexities I didn't get into and things I didn't have time to approach. Hopefully I'll last a bit longer this time and say some interesting things, because I don't want to just talk about rock music and say that I like rock music, which I do. I do like rock music and I actually do want to talk about rock music, but it's more sort of what that means to me or how that's significant. Really bothered by that spider, really putting me off. And sort of what it means to me as a person, or how it shaped me, if that makes any sense. I find rock music, as well as incredibly enjoyable, I find rock music really interesting. I find it really interesting, first of all, as a feminist, because I don't find rock music really remotely feminist at all. And although, I don't know, it's a bit like, it feels to me a bit like video games, where there's an enormous fan base of men and women who enjoy rock music, but women are not at all represented by rock music, really. The amount of women who are in rock bands, the amount of women who, for example, play the drums or you see playing lead guitar, is a tiny percentage of sort of the whole roster of rock musicians. But the audience is enormous. Obviously, men and women really enjoy rock music, which is a bit weird. I think it's a real, I don't know, it's really typical. It's a really typical export of the patriarchy, and that's possibly partly because of the era that it came out of. But that doesn't mean it's a bad thing, or we can't enjoy, or that it is all actively misogynist or sexist. Not at all. I don't think so. But I don't know, that's a point I wanted to open with before I died, because I think it's really interesting to consider that. And that always confused me when I was a kid. And growing up as someone who really wanted to play the drums, and you know, I feel that my primary instrument isn't really guitar, it's drums. I found it strange that women didn't play the drums very often and weren't encouraged to play the drums, even though you have some extraordinarily good women playing the drums, and a very famous example is a lady called Sheila E., who is, particularly in the session playing scene, extremely famous for just being a very, very good drummer and percussionist. And she's also famous, I think, for playing with Prince a lot in the 80s and 90s. But, you know, she has a really strong reputation. But I bet you can maybe name the amount of women who play the drums on, what, one finger? And you could say, oh, the lady from the Cause, or from the Go-Go's, or yeah, another one will come to me in a minute. I should probably take the shotgun with me, shouldn't I? Because I've made everyone angry now. But yeah, the artist that rock music came to me at a really, really young age, and what originally happened was I basically stole a bunch of stuff from my family. I basically stole their music. mostly a bunch of tapes that my dad had for the car, because back in those days you listened to tapes in the car in the 80s. And so I stole a bunch of Queen stuff and listened to it and really enjoyed it. And obviously Queen's an all-male band, just like the Beatles or Guns N' Roses or the Rolling Stones or Thin Lizzy or Elton John is an all-male band. I mean, I've checked. And they just all are. They all are and all were, with very, very few exceptions. Or with, like, almost someone who feels like a token lady in the band. But I mean, that wasn't primarily on my mind. It primarily on my mind that I was just enjoying a lot of this rock music. Queen were one of the first. I'm going to list a bunch of different people, and they'll all probably be extremely untrendy. And immediately, I don't care about that at all. I cared about it a bit more when I was younger, but I couldn't do anything about it because it's not like I could control what I liked. Which was frustrating, because particularly when you get to that kind of age of... Oh, I hate scorpions. Oh, if that guy jumps on those spikes down there, I will be so happy. But he's just gone, he's gone. It was more of a problem when I got older and people were sort of actively amused by my tastes in music, which probably haven't changed a lot over the years either, which is that a cool thing? I've never been a very cool person. I will actively, quite immediately admit that there is nothing cool about me, and I'm not cool and probably have no taste, and I'm not trendy. But that didn't stop my enjoyment of the music that I did enjoy, and I couldn't pretend not to like it. So yes, I very much got into Queen. I've very much got into Meatloaf, which is probably massively untrendy. Meatloaf is fascinating, and amazingly sort of unusual musically, and maybe as a person. And Elton John as well, or a lot of early Elton John. And Elton John, I'm sure, is like probably the least trendy thing that there is. But I mean, I don't care, because I was amazed by the stuff I listened to, and it was a massive influence on me as a person, and on my... Ooh, what am I doing here? Oh dear, that was a bit close. They're not going to go on the spikes. I just shouldn't really go down there, should I? I mean, one of them will eventually shoot the other, but if no one... There's not going to be any spikes happening. Just, yeah, cut my losses. Because what was happening with... I should start with those three. What was happening with Queen? I mean, the first song on the first tape that I played was Bohemian Rhapsody on Queen Greatest Hits. There we go, that's the first song on the first tape I have. That's like a 6-minute unusual progressive rock opera thing with multiple time signatures and strange imagery, and oh dear, that wasn't supposed to happen. The annoying thing is those purple spiders almost never hurt me, and I usually end up hurting myself just trying to kill them out of spite. And then the rest, even the rest of Queen Greatest Hits, is quite varied and unusual. I mean, there's, you know, prog rock stuff in there, there are ballads, there's funk, there's heavy rock verging on heavy metal. And some of it is quite straightforward in what the songs are about, which is just, you know, I like someone, or... Yep. There's nothing you can do about those. They're just off screen and you don't know they're there, and they fire and you go, oh, okay, well, thanks for that. And you're just glad that you didn't land on any spikes. And then, I mean, what happened with Meatloaf? I think I basically stole a Meatloaf tape as well. And it would have been the Bat Out of Hell album, and then the first track on Bat Out of Hell is Bat Out of Hell, which is like a 7 or 8 minute long prog rocky multi-section ridiculous overblown thing, and it's enormous. And then when I started stealing Elton John tapes, I think as he got older, Elton John sort of turned into someone who made a lot of ballads, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But the stuff that I was listening to was, again, hugely varied. A mixture of ballads and weird prog stuff and jazzy things and sort of gospel-y things. I thought the ghost was coming. Why did I think the ghost was coming? Where's the... What am I doing with my life? It's down there. It's down there. I don't have sticky bombs. Don't know what that man's doing. He's just dangerous. That's not helpful. Don't know if I can get out of this. Or if I have to start sort of dropping bombs from the... I've only got 4 bombs. There's every risk he's even just going to get up here and shoot me. If I do that... There we go. That works. And you just sort of keep up a constant barrage until you think he's dead. Much as you would in real life with a real man. Just if you ever have a problem with a man. A lot of... It was very varied, but also Elton John's lyrics at that time were pretty much all written by a guy called Bernie Taupin. Elton John, I think, wrote the music. Bernie Taupin wrote the lyrics. And I was listening to... I was quite young, and I was listening to songs like Mona Lisa's and Mad Hatters, which is a weird, unusual kind of poetic song that was the result of Bernie Taupin heard a gunshot while he was in New York. Like someone fired a gun near his hotel, and for him it ruined, I think, the romantic image of New York that he had. And so he wrote these lyrics that are very poetic and abstract, and actually quite a lot of Elton John's lyrics at that time have some poetic abstract aspect to them, because that's what Bernie Taupin did. And so I'm listening to this or Bad Out of Hell or Bohemian Rhapsody and all these other things, and they're all really creative and fantastical and imaginative. Well, that's certainly how they feel to me. They're so unusual. And I read a lot as a kid, but I didn't read any poetry. I've always had very mixed feelings about poetry, and I was a published poet by the time I was 11, and I had a couple of poems published in a couple of different collections, and I didn't enjoy poetry very much because I quickly found out that what I could do is pretend to write intelligent things, and if they looked like I put thought into them, people thought they were brilliant. And I didn't a lot of the time. A lot of the time I just started writing nonsense to see what I could get away with, like just putting line breaks in wherever I wanted, and people thought it was interesting and artistic, and it wasn't. I wasn't trying to do anything intelligent there. I was just pushing my luck, and you wouldn't believe how far I could push that luck. And I got some things published, and I got lots of notes from... What happened is teachers at school thought I was brilliant, and I wasn't, and it was pretentious nonsense, and it was so fake. But that happened, and then I started listening to, or I was oops, didn't mean to do that. You know what? I'm going to need to save some bombs for the whole trying to find the secret thing. It's not working out today, is it? Really? I don't really know what I'm doing. I feel like I'm in a place in my life where confusion reigns. As in, confusion's in charge. It's not like confusion falls from the sky. But confusion does fall from the sky. Now this... Look. Okay. What are we going to do here? But what I mean to say, if I die in the next few moments, is what rock music actually did was really fire my imagination. No dog, no idol. That's just a horrible level. That was... oh, come on! And particularly also, it seemed to sort of suggest to me that there weren't limits in life. I know a lot of people say, oh, I listened to these songs and they really inspired me, or they... And yeah, well, I guess I'm saying that, but when people write songs that are that long and that big and that elaborate and that unusual and that abstract, and you're a kid and you're listening to them, that's way more interesting than, no offence to Wham, but that's way more interesting than Wham doing Last Christmas. If you're putting on music at Christmas and you put on Bohemian Rhapsody, which was a Christmas #1 twice, by the way, that's so much more interesting. just, you know, how exciting is that? It's exciting. And this kind of continued, and as I bought more and more Queen stuff, and the thing is, a lot of Queen stuff also is unusual, especially when you start getting into album tracks and tracks written by Freddie Mercury that have possible double meanings, or sometimes just hidden sexual meanings, according to people who knew him, who reckon that that's what was happening. Go away. This isn't safe, is it? This is not safe. Look, there are some spikes. This is not safe. He said, just continuing to do it. Anyone see where the torch went? I mean, obviously it's gone out. But there it is. Oh dear, oh dear. So if I... Oh, that's a bat I can hear. I'll be honest, it's quite hard to concentrate on everything. Just on everything. I hope you do know you can relight torches, because you can, and it's a lifesaver. And it's actually a very cool aspect of the game. Not worth going up there. Good, that was a total waste of time. But, hello. It was a lot more exciting than the poetry I was writing, and for me, it felt a lot more like poetry than a lot of the stuff I was being exposed to as poetry. What it also did for me, this is what I've been trying to say now for the last 2 minutes, when people write massive, complex, big songs, you immediately think to yourself, right, being creative is about ambition. It's about scale. You know, why aim small? Why not make big, elaborate, complex things? Because you can, and that's really neat. And I think that's probably a very big inspiration to me, and probably part of the reason why, oh dear, why I like some of the things that I do. Would have liked to talk a bit more about maybe the misogyny side of things. I feel quite guilty now when I listen to Guns N' Roses, because I think musically Guns N' Roses are kind of fascinating. But I think, I don't know him, but the impression I get from Axl Rose is he's been endlessly frustrated by ladies who he's not had a good time with, which might be partly because of who he is, and then he blames them. But that's a very judgmental thing to say. I'd like to talk more about some of the other things that happened, because getting into music got me into... It was how I made some of the friends that I had, how I ended up in some of the bands that I was in. And, you know, it's not very trendy to like Dire Straits, but I was in a band that did Dire Straits covers, and that's how I met one of my most interesting friends and had a brilliant time. And that's what music did for me, was it linked me with people. And it didn't become... It wasn't... That's a proper, real experience of making a friend and making a connection with them, and that's worth so much more than being in a group of people at school and pretending that you like something because they do, because it's just false, which I was never good at doing, which at the time was horrible, but I guess in retrospect it's good. And I suppose I would have liked to have talked about how I started to get into Bob Dylan and Neil Young, and also how I'm amazed that some people can write great songs that have just 3 chords in them, because I can't. If I'm trying to write a piece of music, I feel I need to put more and more in, and it can be an amazing thing to write a song that's actually very simple and very good. But there you go. That's about it. And rock stars are interesting because they seem to be people who are outside. For me, rock stars occupy the same space as superheroes. They're people who are sort of outside normal experience, and normal rules don't apply to them. And when you start deconstructing them, sometimes they go wrong, and strange things happen to them, and their power and their position drives them apart, drives them to do weird things. They're so transgressive, and they're so interesting. But we don't have time because I'm dead. But I am top of the scoreboard that has no one else on it, and I'm in the top 100, even though probably lots of people haven't played yet today. And if I don't come back and look, that rank won't change. Thanks for watching. I don't know what I'm going to say next, because I'm actually running out of things that have inspired me that aren't too difficultly personal. Don't mind talking about myself, but one of the topics I was thinking about would involve talking about a member of my family, and then talking about personal things to do with them. I feel it's quite different to share that. through the medium of a sort of a video blog where I play a game, which is kind of trite. I don't know. Bye!